We would certainly appreciate it if you could subscribe. Our channel definitely needs people to subscribe.
And it's time for us to make our annual journey south and east to do a little fishing and look around the Steens Mountains and the high desert. We stop in Burns to get some gasoline, and we see this wooden cowboy sitting on guard there with his trusty rifle there taking a little snooze. The title of this piece is Gun for Hire. We chart a course south and east, hitting Highway 205 just a short distance out of Burns, where we'll go south to French Glen and past Roaring Springs Ranch. As we turn on 205 heading for French Glen, we see an old goose has chosen the protection of the top of a haystack for her nesting site. Alongside the highway, in some of the irrigated pastures, we see the sandhill cranes pecking along for something to eat. A common snipe probes deep in the irrigated pasture for bugs and worms and something to eat. Some more sandhill crane are out grazing in the lush irrigated pastures. On both sides of the road, sandhill crane and Canadian geese are a common sight as we push southward along Highway 205. It's nesting season right now for these birds, and sometimes you can witness the mating ritual of the sandhill cranes from the highway here. A little herd of deer are grazing their way across the lush pastures in Malheur Refuge, and the Steens Mountains stand tall and snowy in the background as we come closer and closer to French Glen. Our small gasoline engine pushes it southward as the sun is starting to set near the horizon as we near French Glen. As we push southward at the last sunshine of the day, we see evidence of early inhabitants. There's a cave up here where early Americans called home right after the Ice Age, when this big lake out here drained. They lived in this for hundreds of years. Several mule deer are taking advantage of the lush pastures on the Roaring Springs Ranch. There are some bucks in this herd. The one that's just walking away is a buck, a pretty good sized buck. His antlers are just starting to grow back after the shed of the early spring. They're in what they call the velvet stage now. As he grazes along, his little velvet antler stands up there for all who look to see. And these will grow real rapidly now, over an inch a day. It's the time of year the old mares have their little colts, so we were able to see some very pretty little colts right alongside the highway just beyond Roaring Springs Ranch. This little guy has a thirst that won't stop as his mother tenderly stands and lets him nurse. It looks as though it's definitely dinner time in the horse community as we move along Roaring Springs Ranch as the sun disappears below the horizon. These little colts will grow very rapidly and within a few years there will be a cowboy sitting astride this little horse, galloping through the sagebrush. The cowboy will have on his cowboy boots and large brimmed hat, and he'll be whooping and hollering as he chases the cows on the annual roundup. We were hoping to get to the hot springs and set up camp before dark. We didn't make it, but we set up camp the next morning at first light. We're up and checking out the hot springs. The old tin shack that once surrounded the hot springs is partly gone. I take a little hike up behind camp. A magpie nest is in the tree. A few mule deer are standing around, grazing and looking, and finally hop away. The mule deer numbers have been very low in the Steens Mountains in the past few years, but they may be coming back just a little bit now, as we seem to be able to see them most everywhere. The wildflowers are normally in bloom by this time of year, but this year they're only beginning. A tiny crocus has just barely poked its head up and bloomed. A little bluebell is just starting its blossoming cycle. The death camuses, spike of flowers, wave in a gentle desert breeze.
Box there.
Yeah, that fuse box is right there. Boy, that thing was burning hot. And
That's what started it, was your fuse box?
Fuse box set it on fire.
Yeah, and then it burned up there, and
Yeah, it just went up there, and the fire was breaking through there. It's so hot, it just went boom like an explosion out here, you know.
then you opened the door and the flames started coming in, you said?
Come right in, and it was already starting to blow through around the corners before it just took that quick, you know.
Oh, it was already starting to burn inside, huh?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
blew here, and then it just went up the wall.
And
It went both ways down along the fence line there.
yeah.
You just wouldn't believe that any crippled old man could stop that fire as big as it was.
Oh, how did you stop it?
Just had that hose out here, and it was already running a little bit because it's freezing at night, and I wanted to keep the water from freezing up, you know. And I turned it full on and just dived into the fire and kept squirting it.
Oh, and that,
This was the last part they got down. It was running down this way and that way, and
good thing you had that hose on,
yeah,
unfrozen.
I was there, lost the whole damn place.
Yeah, the whole thing would have gone.
Trailers and the east buildings are close. I might have got them too, you know. Once this
Yeah.
one got all hot.
It would have got
Getting
awful
all
hot.
out here.
Yeah.
I stopped by to visit with Carl, an old-time resident of the desert, and learned he had had a fire there and nearly burned his house down. I take my land sailor out and start rigging it up. There's a wind blowing, and we just well take advantage of that since I brought the land sailor. So I'll rig it up and we'll see if it'll sail. I put the sail on and stand it up, and I'm ready to sail. Looks like there's plenty of wind, and if that machine'll just wait for me, I'll get on and see what it'll do going out across the desert here, with the Steens Mountains standing tall and snowy in the background. I get on the contraption, which we have built with just using some pieces of iron, an old sail we got for a little bit of nothing, and some wheelbarrow wheels, which work well for wheels. I catch a desert breeze, and all I can hear now is the whipping of the sail and the hum of the playa below my wheelbarrow wheels as I sail off out into the distance of the playa. Only with the power of the wind, which in a 20-mile-an-hour wind, sometimes we can get these things up to almost 60 miles an hour. Marge reminds me that it's not all fun and games we have to get some drinking water at Frog Springs, down just a little ways below where we camp. We'll go there and get our drinking water, and I think that water is tops for drinking. Other people, if you're used to city water, it might make you sick. Someone has written a sign on here that says, "Good drinking water," on the little ladder which goes over the fence. We get in the vehicle and head back to our camp now. There's a nasty looking storm cloud hanging over the Steens Mountains, and it looks like there's going to be a few squalls come our way, but that won't matter. We've got a good tent and a buffalo robe to coil up under. And it's time to unload the Honda and see if it'll run okay out here. And I'm going to take a little run out on the desert with it.
The wind fills the sail, and we're off across the desert. With just the humming of the wind and
it's too darn windy for the camp stove, so why not take advantage of the hot springs? I've put some eggs, some potatoes, and a can of stew in the hot springs here, and it looks like it's done. Oh boy, are we going to have a feast. This is something that isn't recommended for everyone. There's all sorts of minerals in these waters that might soak into the food, and we're used to them, so it doesn't bother us, but I don't know what they might do to someone that isn't. The hot springs isn't terribly hot, so we can leave our food in there till we're ready to eat it. A can of stew, maybe in 3 or 4 hours, is done. About 4 hours for a nice boiled potato, and boy, are they good. After a good meal, it looks like a good day to go fishing. So we gather up ourselves and head to Mann Lake to see what we can catch. And it looks like they're biting today. And these aren't small fish. We were catching a few little 10, 12, and 14 inchers, but we just turn them back and go after the old big guys, 'cause we're going to have us a fish feed second to none here. It doesn't take long, and my pole starts bending and the line stands straight out as the fish shakes, twists, and jumps to try to get free. But he's hooked good, and so I'm going to pull him in and see what he is. This is a very shallow lake with lots of weed bed, but that's great. There's a lot of things live in those weeds that the fish can eat, so they grow extremely rapidly. In this lake, there's the Lahontan cutthroat, and they're indigenous to this high desert area and do the best in shallow, alkaline lakes like Mann Lake here where we're fishing. These fish are about the only trout that'll survive in these waters. They have adapted to where they can withstand the extreme hot water in the summer and the high alkali content which is in these lakes year-round. A storm cloud hangs on top of the Steens Mountains, but that doesn't seem to matter. The fish are still biting, and the coots and different ducks are swimming around in Mann Lake. There's plenty of feed in here for them too. The Lahontan cutthroat in Mann Lake are hybrids, so they'll grow bigger and faster. Marge and I are the only one fishing Mann Lake today, and that's okay. We're catching plenty of fish here. We've caught several small ones that we've released, and we're catching
you got one of them to
a few
bite?
big ones along with it.
Oh, he's a little one, huh?
I've caught another small one, which I'll turn
He
loose
just isn't
here
a keeper.
instantly.
There he goes. Bring him in. Oh, that's a nice one.
Yeah, that's a nice fish.
Hold him up.
Most of the time we either fish in an area where we've caught fish before, or else we watch for them jumping and swimming around on the surface and cast to them. That works well too. I'm using a very light leader on my fly line here, so I have to play these fish really good before I can bring them in, or else they're going to break my line. That fish is beginning to feel the toll of being hooked for quite a while and is beginning to play out, and we're getting him in closer and closer to shore. Maybe we'll get a good look at him here in just a little bit. And here comes that monster fish from the depths of Mann Lake into the shallow waters. He's beginning to play out now, and we're getting him in really close, but this gets to be the exciting place. He can still get away here as he shakes his head, flips his tail, and rolls around here in the shallows. I'm hanging in there because I want to catch this fish. He'll certainly make some excellent eating, and I'm just about to get him played out. And here he comes. It looks like I'm just about to get him in the net, but he doesn't like the looks of that net, and he takes off again. But then I reach down, and I've got him in the net. And what a dandy fish. We'll lay him out here and measure.
18.5.
Oh, so now he's a keeper.
Yeah. Where's your...
Don't horse him.
Oh, he's ready. Come in. I'm ready for him to come in.
Where'd he go?
He's right here. There. There he is. Got him. A fat one. He's the one that jumped down. Oh, he's not a keeper, though.
By now, we each have our limit of 2, so it's time to go. And wow, are we going to have a fish feed or what? As we pack our fishing gear and get ready to head back to camp, we see that one of the peaks of the Steens Mountains is under siege of a wicked little squall. But that won't last too long, and we get back to camp. It's time for a photo op with our fish before we clean them and get them ready to cook for dinner. There's a person camped next to us. He wants to go see the land sailor. We get on the four-wheeler and go down to see it, and we stand it up, and a little deer mouse runs out and scrambles away.
He's definitely a sailor.
This little mouse is imposing a problem on us. The only place he could find to hide were under the wheels on the land sailor, so we didn't dare move it till we got him out of there, or else we might crush him. Then he saw the Honda, and took refuge up in the frameworks on it. I'm afraid that we're going to kill him up in there, so we're making another attempt to get him out of there. There's just not many places for a little deer mice to hide out
Space in
here.
that wheel he can get into.
I'll be darned. Boy, I'll bet he'd be one dizzy mouse.
Yeah.
There, he's going back up in the
Riding, dropping
framework.
off somewhere.
Yeah.
Sounds like it's not that easy to get rid of him, though. He doesn't drop off too easily.
Yeah.
No, I'll put my glove on and grab him and turn him loose here in a minute.
That's amazing.
Got some of that twine wrapped around the hub here in the back.
Oh, yeah, you know, I tried to take that tire off to get rid of that.
Here's his ladder.
Oh, yeah, and I couldn't get it.
Well,
You know, I think he's actually pretty safe.
well, probably.
After repeated attempts, we couldn't get the little mouse out, and we decided he wasn't going to get hurt. So I take to the Honda and go down to Carl's to saw up some wood for him. Before I start sawing Carl's wood, he takes me out to his little pond and we look at some frogs that are in there. We turned around to look at the Honda, and uh-oh, it looks like it's trouble for Mr. Mouse. He better stay hid pretty good there. I went over and chased the cat away. Then the next time I came back by, the cat was right out there all over the Honda, but he couldn't find the mouse this time, so apparently the little mouse had jumped off up at our camp and ran to freedom. The cat's after him right now, so Mr. Cat, you better get on your way. After I saw some of Carl's wood up, we decide that while the cat's away, the mice will play. So Carl and I get on the Honda and go out and look at his beloved desert here, which he's spent so many years out here and so much time on it. Carl is going to be 90 years old this fall, so he needs some help with a few things like that, like cutting his wood and a few things. And he has a really bad knee, but he plans on getting it fixed. So we're going down and see if we can see these rocks that move and leave trails. They're similar to the ones in the racetrack down in Death Valley area. We go by rock after rock and check, and they've left no trails this year. It's only occasionally you'll see the trail. But the Indian paintbrush is in full blossom now.